A few years ago, I made a video on how to add notifications to your apps using Firebase Cloud Messaging. At the time of recording that video, there was no option to use it for your iOS browser or web apps. But since iOS, I think 16.4 or 5, you're able to actually show notifications to your users. There are a few caveats though, but in today's video, I'm going to walk you through how to set up push notifications for iOS progressive web applications. Alright, so first things first, we need to create a Firebase project. So I've already gone ahead and created one. It's not that difficult, just sign up at Firebase and set up a new project. Once that is done, you can go to your project settings, and in your project settings, you'll see a tab called Cloud Messaging. In the settings, there is a section called Web Configuration, Web Push Certificates. I've already created a key pair, but your screen would probably just say create new pair. And then this is a key that you want to save for now. That's the only step we need in the messaging platform on Firebase for now. And there's also a project shortcut for messaging to send test messages. If you don't know how to get to that, because it's not always visible everywhere, in this section with bold, there's no messaging tab, so you can go to all products and scroll all the way down to cloud messaging and click on that. Then it will be added to your project shortcuts. We'll be using this perhaps to send some test messages, but other than that, that's all the setup we need. I'm gonna use Bun to set up a new project with BunX, but if you don't have Bun, you can use npx or I think pnpm dlx or something, anything that executes remote npm scripts. So in this case, I'm going to use BunX, Nuxt. Well, yeah, let's initialize an app called Pusher, because we're doing push notifications. Clear that out, then cd into Pusher, and I'm going to use NeoVim to edit the files. So step number one is, it's to do with a caveat. iOS has a restriction on notifications where the app must be added to the home screen and installed basically as a PWA for it to be allowed to send notifications. So we're just going to do some quick setup to allow the users to add the app to the home screen. The thing that we need is a manifest file. So we're going to do manifest, create a new file called manifest.webmanifest. And then in this, where it's just a JSON object, there's a few things that we need. We just want the display to be standalone. And let's give it a name of Pusher and a short name of Pusher. That's just a way for the app to know that this thing is installable. And then lastly, we'll also need a service worker file that and I think that's called Firebase messaging -sw.js, and the name of this file is very important. The Firebase SDK looks for this file to register its own service worker to start sending messages and stuff. So these are the two scripts that you'll import directly from the Google CDNs. One thing is, you always have to check this version, whether it matches the version in the app that you use. You might just want to have them match up. And I'm using the compat version so that we have this global Firebase thing. But one thing I forgot is that we need to initialize the Firebase app. So I'm going to paste this in here, which is the config that comes from the Firebase dashboard, and then settings, and then you'll find this there. Alright, so to listen to the background messages, we have to do Firebase, or well, we can just do messaging dot on background message, and then I believe we don't need to give it the messaging thing. We just give it a callback, which would be a payload, and this payload would have all the stuff you send with it. So in some cases it would be like payload.data, but we're going to send a notification, so we want to access the notification field. I believe that's how we access it, but for now we'll just do some hard-coded data. Let's console.log received a BG message, which means the app was closed, and then we'll just give it the payload as well so we can see what that's all about, and then we'll add a title. Let's do message title, and we'll set up the notification options. This receives a body. We can just do something like notification body, and it also accepts an icon. So if you have an icon in your app, you could do something like icon.png, but we don't have an icon, so I think we'll leave that out. A global called self, and then this is called registration, and then show notification, and then this accepts the title and then the notification. Not sure why the title can't be part of the notification, but I guess that's fine. And this has to move up here. Alright, so that's basically all we need to set up our service worker. It will handle all the messages coming in from Firebase or from your server. And then now what we can do is, firstly, let's install Firebase. Yeah, I'll install Firebase admin as well. Alright, so now that Firebase is installed, we can set up a plugins directory, create a new file called firebase.client.ts. So if you're not using Nuxt at this point, this plugin is basically just going to get run before everything, and then provide the global messaging variable to the Nuxt app. You could do that in any app, wherever you want to set up anything before your app renders, so that messaging is ready when you want to call it from your components. But in Nuxt, it's pretty simple. You can just do define Nuxt plugin. It's a callback, and what we want to do is check if there are, let's import some stuff. Really do, not sure if it's the best practice, but I just say const app equals the get apps. If you have multiple apps, this won't work, but I only want one. Get apps at 0, otherwise initialize app with that same Firebase config. And let's copy that from and then we have our app. So now we can do const messaging equals get messaging, use this app, and then we're going to provide it to the entire Nuxt app. So we'll do messaging, and that's fine. We don't need to provide the app. And TypeScript is going to complain. We need to type our Nuxt app and our View app. And instead of hello, we're going to have messaging. And this is going to be an instance of messaging. not admin, that one. And then we can just yank all that and then paste it there as well. So that just tells Nuxt what's happening. Also, what we want to do is in the plugin, we'll just register a global handler for receiving messages, and this is the special function that will run whenever. Let's comment that over here. So this sorry, this runs whenever a message is received, and then we have to say when the page is open or when the user clicked the background notification. Alright, so when we receive this message, what you might want to do is, well, it also gives you a payload. What you want to do is maybe add it to some state or something like that that displays all the messages, or render it in the UI. But what we're going to do is we're just going to alert new message. Now we can go to our app and first of all request permission to send notifications. Alright, so I'm going to go into the app.view. I'm going to remove this Nuxt welcome, and in the app, and this is what you'll do on the page that actually handles setting up the request for notifications. So it could be like a little notification icon in the top left. When the user clicks it, you'll request permission, get the token, and then send it to your server. And this is how we'll do that. So we need to import some stuff from Firebase messaging, and that would be get messaging, and also the other one is get token. So first of all, in our app, we're just going to run it when the client mounts. As soon as your page renders, then it's going to either check if you have permissions, and if you do, send the token. If you don't have permissions, it's going to request permission first and then send the token to the server. So we'll do this on an unmounted hook. Firstly, we'll also have to check if this is an older browser. We don't want to do any of this if it doesn't have notifications. So we could do something like if no window.notification, just return, because then we don't want to do anything. So the way we do that is const messaging equals use Nuxt app. Because we did that provide function, and what that provide function did is it gave us this variable all over the Nuxt app that we can call in script setup or plugins or middleware. And now that we have messaging, first what we want to do is check if notifications are actually allowed. And we can do that on the global notification object. We can say if window.notification.permission is granted, which means the user already granted as permission, we're going to call a function called set token, which we need to define. Else, we need to ask the user if we can have permission to send them notifications. And the way we do that is we have to prompt them. And we can do that on the global notification object as well by saying window.notification.request permission. And then once that is requested, we'll get a value. And we need to check this value. If they granted it to us, we can say if value equals granted, then now we can set the token again. So let's define the set token function. We can say function set token, and let's make this an async function. And what we want to do over here is use the messaging. So actually we don't need messaging over here, we can do it in the set token function. Now that we know for sure that notifications have been given, we know that we'll get a token. So we can say that the token would be the get token function that we imported at the top, and this requires the messaging thing. And now you can see that's a promise, so we need to await that. And then what that returns is a token string. So the first thing we'll do is just log out the token. Oh, we don't need to do that. Let's create a global, not global, but a variable on the page called messaging token. Is a ref that will be empty. And what we actually want to do here is send token to server, save in user schema. So if you have a database, you'll save this current token to the database, and this token can change at any moment. So you have to always check if the token is fresh and then set the token. So in Firebase, you could set that on a profile document or as some user claims or something. But in our case, we're not going to save it on the database. We're just going to render it in the UI, manually copy it and paste it. But if it's on the database, then you can always get it in your server side. So we want to send the token to server, save and use schema, but we're just manually doing it. Okay, so now we can just say that the messaging token dot value is equal to the token, and then below this div we can add a p tag and say something like vif messaging token. Sorry, let me just scroll this up. Messaging token, we just want to render it out. And to make life a little easier, I'm going to add a copy to clipboard function. So let's make this a button. And then at click, we just want to copy this text to the clipboard. So copy, and then we'll define a function called copy. And all we're going to do is say navigator.clipboard.write text, and then that would be the messaging token dot value. So that's basically just copying the token, and we don't really want to render the token in there. We can render it here. And we can do the same vif because we don't want to render it if it's empty. Well, I guess we can. So instead of having the messaging token in here, we can just say copy to clipboard or something. Alright, so that should do it for rendering the clipboard, but I missed one step, and that's in get token. So if you look at the options there, we need to give it a vapid key because it needs to know what vapid key to use. So the vapid key is the key that we saw in Firebase, and I'm going to go back to that page in bold and then messaging. I mean in settings, project settings, and cloud messaging. Let me just show you that again. It's this key pair that you generated, and the one you want to copy is this one. This is the public key. It's fine to put it on your client. Just don't put the private key on your client. So I'm going to copy that again just to make sure, and then back in here we can put the vapid key in there. So now it knows which key to use to get the token of the user. So that should do it. There are some other options in here. If you have a custom service worker registration, if you don't want to use that specific Firebase messaging service worker.js file, you can do your own service worker and then pass the registration in here, but we won't do that. And as soon as I went to that, it's asking me for permission because it realized that there is no token. So I'm going to allow permissions. And if we wait a second, nothing's happening. So let's go back to our app. I forgot one thing. Let's go to the Nuxt config, and what we want to do is add our our manifest to our head in a link tag, and the rel of this would be manifest, and the href would be / manifest.webmanifest. And this is coming from the public folder over here. We called it manifest.webmanifest, and what this is basically doing, it's just creating a link rel equals manifest, and then href is equal to manifest.web. If you're going to do this in plain HTML or Astro or something like that, that's what's going to get rendered into the head of the app. So we need to tell Nuxt to do that for us. And let's try running dev again, and then go to the application again. So now you can see that it actually gets the manifest, and boom, we get a token. So now we can copy this token. I'm going to copy it to clipboard, and then go to the Firebase project, and let's go to messaging. And I think let's split this up in so that we can actually see something happen. And what I'm also going to do is record notifications in case we miss something. But let's create our first campaign, Firebase notification message, create. And I'll show you how to do this in code, but this is just quicker. This doesn't matter because we hard coded everything. The notification text would be something like click me, but it won't do anything for now. We can also add an optional notification image or name, but that's just optional. So I'm going to say send test message, and then let's add this token that we just copied from here. Click the plus button, so now it's aware of this client. And if we say test now, we won't see a notification because the browser is open, but it should log out. Oh, it should alert because we added alert. And there you can see we got an alert, and it's got a notification, title, body. Great, you get that? So now let's try without having this browser open. Let's close that and then see if we get a notification. There we go. So we actually get a notification from Google Chrome, title, click me. And then once we click it, it just takes us to the website. And then I'm going to record my iPhone screen. First, what I'm going to do is visit the app on my iPhone, and the way I need to do that is to go, I've got a new tab over here, and there's a tool called Cloudflare. It's a tool that helps you create a tunnel so that you have an HTTPS URL that you can visit, or you can use the expose or the host variable in Beat, so that it actually exposes on your network. But because I'm running in a Windows subsystem for Linux, that doesn't quite work so well. So what I do is I just do Cloudflare tunnel, and then URL is http localhost 3000. And what that does is it creates a nice little live URL that you can visit in your browser. And then because this is a different URL, we need to reallow notifications, and when it's allowed, we should be able to get a token. And I'll do the same thing on my phone. Just going to visit this URL. So the screen is recording. When I refresh the app, it's not asking me for permissions. And I think I've dealt with this before. I believe that in iOS, you first have to install the app. So I'm going to add to home screen. And I think one last step that we actually have to do is in iOS, I don't think it is allowed to request notification permission without any action on the page. So let's add a button for iOS. Let's go to the app.view, and then all we have to do is add another button, not that, add click equals request permission, and this was called, okay, so let's add this whole logic into a function called request permission. And then in this we can just call request permission. Perfect. So now in the application on my phone, I'm going to click on allow notifications, which works. So in Apple, you do need an actual click or something action by the user to allow notifications. So you could show a little pop-up and say, hey, to use our app, please allow notifications, click here, and then it shows the actual iOS pop-up. Click allow, give it a few seconds, and we got a token. I'm going to copy that token to the clipboard. I'm going to stop my screen recording for a second, go to Firebase, add it as a token, and send. Alright, so I'm on my device. Hopefully it's on your screen as well. I'm going to paste the token that I copied from the application, paste it in there, and then I'm going to say test and see if, there we go. From Pusher we actually get a notification. If I click on it, it opens the app. The next steps are that I want to show you how to make this more useful. I mean, the test sending stuff works, but in the set token function, what we actually want to do is, let's say we want to say something like fetch to API token with the method of post, and we want to add the token in the body. And this is a simulated thing. I'm not gonna actually do it. Let me just stop this tunnel and stop the server as well. And in our server API, we'll create API directory, and then token.post.th. What we have in this event handler is the body that comes from the request. So we would do something like const body equals await read body from the event. Let's assume that the token is in this body. What we want to do in this case is save the token to DB, something like messages.post.ts. So let's pretend that this is an endpoint that gets called when a user adds a new message to a public forum or something like that. We're going to import the DB. So now we have like a fictitious DB. And what we want to do is initialize Firebase admin. From Firebase admin and get messaging. And this has to be from app. So we can just say const app equals initialize app, and we need to give it the config as well in here, but we'll skip that for now. And then const messaging. So now we have the messaging object. So what we want to do is look at the body of this request. Let's just assume that there's like some sort of message that comes in, like the user added it to some sort of post. What we can do is just simply say messages or messaging.send, and this expects a message. And because we want this to be a notification, we can give it the notification with a title of some title and the body of some body. And I think you can add an image URL as well. So you'll probably just add your URL to whatever image you want to have in the notification. We'll skip that. And this also requires a token. So this is the important part. I'll show you the logic behind this. So we have our DB. In our case, our DB is just a list of tokens. But essentially what you want to do is you want to add your token to the user object inside your real DB. So your payload in this request could be something like from, which is a user ID, and to, which is a user ID, and the message. So in this case, you get the to user, because that's the user that needs to be notified. And from your DB, you could say something like DB at the payload dot to, which is not going to work in this case because our DB is just an array. But if it was the user, so you only give the user that you want to send this notification to, you give that token. But in our case, we can just say DB at 0. Let's assume we're sending it to the first user. And what this will do is, we have to wait this as well. What this will do is it'll send off to Firebase Cloud Messaging, this notification, and then act the same way as the Firebase UI acts. It will do that notification thingy. There's a few other options. You can say messaging.send to topic, and the topic accepts the actual topic string and the payload. So you can say something like stocks, and then the payload would be notification, etc., etc. And in order for that to work, you first need to have users inside your stocks topic. So what you can do is say messaging.add, subscribe to topic, and it accepts either an array of tokens. So we can basically, in our case, just give it a DB, but let's just give it the first one, which is our user, and then we give it the topic. Is this the right way around? Yeah. So we want to subscribe this user to this topic. And this action would happen somewhere else. Let's say the user goes into a chat feed only for recipes or something. And when they click the get notified button, they only subscribe to notifications for recipes. Or when they in like a public game chat, they only subscribe to the game topic. Another thing that you can do is to send bulk notifications. So there's messaging.send multicast, I think. That looks deprecated. Okay, so send each for multicast, which means you get a the same type of thing, but it's a multicast message. So instead of token, it's gonna have tokens, and then you can provide a list of users to send this to, and then the notification, yada yada, same stuff over there. But in case of the tokens, there's a limit over here. It only allows you to add a list of 100 tokens. And that's about it. You can also, instead of notifications, you can also just send arbitrary data, which isn't defined with title, body, whatever. And data you'll probably use in the handler that runs whenever your client receives a message. Let's say someone sends a message on a chat app to your database, you send that notification out, or you send that message out to the client, and there's some data on there. You use the notification data to show title, body, whatever, but there's also some data based on the message so that you can immediately just render it into the UI as it is received. So yeah, I think that is the flow, and I hope it helped out somewhat, and that you enjoy sending notifications to your users. Please remember to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. Cheers.